Have you ever met someone who didn't just enter your life but entered your soul? Someone who felt like home and heartbreak at the same time, as if the universe carved a moment in eternity just to bring you together, not to stay, but to shatter you awake. They didn't just love you, they activated something. They stirred memories, lifetimes, emotions that had no name. And even after they left, you were never the same again. You smiled differently. You carried a quiet storm, because what they left behind was not emptiness, it was awakening. This is not a love story. This is a soul story. It's not about happily ever after. It's about the moment that changed you forever. It's about the one you couldn't keep, and why the universe needed you to meet them. Not for comfort, but for growth. Not for safety, but for transformation. Some people don't come to love you gently. They come to break the illusions you built around your heart, to show you the you forgot you were. So now, let's get started. Take a breath, because what you're about to hear isn't just a story. It's your reflection, it's your release, and maybe, just maybe, it's the closure your soul has been silently begging for. Let's begin this journey, not to find answers, but to find yourself, all over again. Chapter 1. The Cruel Gift of a Deep Connection. Have you ever met someone whose presence felt like a divine interruption in your life? They didn't arrive gently. They arrived like lightning, sudden, electric, undeniable, as if the universe reached deep into your soul, pulled out your forgotten pieces, and placed them in someone else's eyes. But here's the harsh truth. Not everyone who touches your soul is meant to stay in your life. Sometimes they're meant to wake you up, because before them you were asleep, walking through life with a mask, a smile that hid confusion, a routine that numbed your deeper calling. You thought you knew who you were, but then they came, so nothing made sense anymore. They stirred your silence, triggered old wounds, resurrected dreams you buried just to survive. They cracked open parts of your heart that even you were afraid to face, and the most painful part? You felt seen, truly seen, maybe for the first time, but it didn't last, because it wasn't supposed to. This was never about love. It was about awakening. This was never about forever. It was about remembrance of who you are beneath the noise. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will rule your life and you will call it fate." That person, they were not fate. They were your mirror, your soul's messenger. A cosmic alarm clock ringing through the chaos of your comfort zone. They didn't come to complete you. They came to crack you open, to force you to look at your shadow, your patterns, your wounds, your truth. And yes, it hurts. It hurts to realize someone could make you feel that much only to disappear like mist in morning light. But listen carefully. This was not a loss. It was an assignment. It was the universe putting you back in alignment. You didn't meet them by accident. You met them because your soul was ready. Ready to remember, ready to heal, ready to evolve. So no, this wasn't a mistake. It was a brutal blessing, a cruel gift, wrapped in a connection that felt like home but was designed to push you out into the unknown. Because only in discomfort do we grow. Only in heartbreak do we meet our depth. And you, my friend, are about to rise. Chapter 2. Soul Chemistry. Why it feels so real. Why does it hit so deep? Why does it feel like they touched not just your heart, but something older, something ancient, something sacred? The truth is, when two souls collide with that kind of pull, it's never just about romance. It's never about flowers, dates, and promises. It's spiritual surgery, a divine disruption, a cosmic collision engineered not for comfort, but for evolution. Carl Jung once said, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed." Let that sink in. When this person entered your life, something reacted. Something ancient inside you moved. Not just your emotions, but your inner wiring. Your spiritual DNA started to shift, and you began to unravel. This wasn't love at first sight. It was recognition, at first soul glance, as if you didn't meet them. You remembered them, the way they spoke, the way their presence lingered even after they were gone. It wasn't logical. It was chemical. It was energetic. It was alchemical. Because this wasn't about building a safe life together. It was about awakening the parts of yourself that had gone numb, the parts buried under trauma, silence, routine, survival. They didn't come to hold your hand through calm waters. They came to throw you into the storm so that you could remember you were born with wings. And that storm, that fire, was never meant to destroy you. It was meant to burn down the version of you that was living someone else's story. You see, this is alchemy. This is soul chemistry, not the sweet kind. The sacred, unsettling, soul-stretching kind. The kind that forces you to let go of illusions. The illusions of control, the masks, the false narratives, the shoulds that society planted in you. They came to break the mirror you were using so you could finally see your reflection in their eyes. And that's why it felt so real. Not because it was meant to last, but because it was meant to change you. You were never supposed to stay the same after meeting them. You were supposed to shed, to question, to evolve, to feel things so deeply that you'd never again accept a shallow life. So if you're still wondering why you can't forget them, why their memory lives in your body like a ghost that won't leave, it's because they were more than a person. They were a portal to your higher self, to your deepest wounds, to the you were always meant to become. And that kind of connection, it doesn't fade easily, because it didn't come to stay, it came to transform. Chapter 3. Synchronicity or Punishment. Why would the universe show me something so beautiful, only to take it away? Have you ever screamed that question into the silence of your own heartbreak? Have you ever looked up at the sky with tears in your eyes and whispered, "What was the point of this? Why make me feel something so real, just to rip it away?" You're not alone. That question lives in the deepest corners of every soul that's ever loved deeply and lost loudly. But here's the truth no one tells you. It wasn't punishment. It was preparation. It wasn't a betrayal by the universe. It was an invitation from your soul. Because that connection you experienced, it wasn't designed to bring you comfort. It was designed to bring you clarity. It was meant to break the illusion that you were awake when you were still fast asleep. Carl Jung called this synchronicity, not coincidence, not randomness, but a meaningful alignment of events, or in this case, souls. When Jung talked about synchronicity, he wasn't talking about luck. He was talking about divine timing, about moments that pierce through the noise of life and remind you, you are being guided, even through the chaos. That person didn't randomly appear in your life. They were placed there. Like a key to a locked door you didn't even know existed inside you, a collision of timelines, a cosmic mirror, a divine echo that said, it's time to wake up. But wake up to what? To the patterns that have ruled your life, to the stories you've been living that were never truly yours, to the wounds you've been hiding behind achievement, behind routine, behind pretending to be okay. They weren't here to complete you. They were here to confront you, to stir your unconscious, to shatter the mask, to pull your shadow into the light where it could no longer hide. You see, synchronicity is not soft. It's precise. It's surgical. It knows exactly what you need, even when it hurts. And sometimes what you need most is someone to walk into your world and remind you of everything you've forgotten, who you are, what you crave, what you fear, what you've been suppressing just to survive. They didn't just touch your heart. They exposed your soul, and yes, the universe took them away, not to punish you, but to protect the purpose of the meeting, because if they stayed, you'd focus on them. But if they leave, you're forced to focus on you. This isn't about blame, this is about becoming. That connection was never the destination. It was the activation, the spark that ignited your awakening, the pain that finally made you pay attention. So next time you ask, why did I meet someone I couldn't keep? Remember, the universe doesn't send people to fulfill your fantasy. It sends them to fulfill your growth. This wasn't a punishment. It was a divine whisper, a synchronicity with one message. The old you must die, so the real you can be born. Chapter 4. The Mirror Effect. Why they broke you. Open. You thought they were the one. The final chapter, the reward at the end of your long wait, the one who would stay, love you, fix everything that hurt inside. But they weren't your destination. They were your mirror. And mirrors don't comfort you, they confront you, they don't tell you what you want to hear, they show you what you've been refusing to see. They came into your life, not to heal you, but to reveal you, to hold up a reflection so clear, so raw, so unfiltered, that suddenly all your unconscious patterns were visible, your need to be chosen, your fear of being abandoned, your unhealed childhood wounds dressed in adult relationships, your tendency to shrink, to please, to overextend, just to be loved. They didn't break you. They showed you where you were already breaking, where you'd been bleeding quietly for years. They simply pulled the curtain back on your pain, and that's why it hurt so deeply. Because for the first time, you were awake. You thought, if it ended, it must mean I failed. If they left, it must mean I'm not enough. I'm not. But what if the ending was the beginning? What if the heartbreak was the doorway you never would have walked through on your own? Carl Jung taught us that until we make the unconscious conscious, it will continue to rule our lives. And we'll just call it fate. But here's the thing. Pain brings awareness, and awareness brings power. And sometimes the only way the universe can wake you up is by sending someone to press on your wounds so hard. You have to look at them. You weren't broken because it ended, you were reborn because it did. That person, they were never yours to keep, they were your soul's alarm clock, a divine catalyst wrapped in human skin, a sacred disturbance designed to pull your healing to the surface. And yes, it was messy, yes, it was painful, but healing always begins in chaos, because before transformation there is the tearing, before peace there is the earthquake, before the light there is the mirror. And that mirror shows you every shadow, every scar, every lie you've believed about yourself. They didn't come to break your heart. They came to break your pattern, to stop the cycle, to interrupt the script you've been unknowingly acting out for years. The pain wasn't punishment, it was the portal, to a deeper truth, to a freer you, to the version of yourself that doesn't settle, doesn't chase, doesn't beg to be seen, because they've finally seen themselves. So when you ask, why did they hurt me so deeply? Understand this. They didn't hurt you. They exposed the part of you that was already hurting. And in that exposure, you found your first real chance to heal. This wasn't the end of your story. It was the mirror that showed you where your real story begins. Chapter 5. Love that was never meant to stay. We live in a world obsessed with permanence, a world that tells us if love is real, it lasts. If they leave, it wasn't meant to be. If it ended, it was a mistake. But what if we've misunderstood the purpose of love altogether? We've been taught to romanticize love, to see it as a fairy tale, a prize, a destination where all wounds magically vanish. But that's not love. That's the ego's fantasy. Because the truth, some of the most real, most intense, most soul-shifting connections aren't meant to stay, they're meant to burn. To ignite something inside you, even if it sets your entire world on fire. Some people come into your life like a flame in a dark room. They illuminate everything, your hopes, your fears, your shadow, your soul. And then, just as quickly, they disappear into the night. Not because they didn't care, but because their role was never to stay. It was to awaken. You see, not every connection is about building something. Some are about destroying illusions. They come to scorch the lies you've been living, to burn through the masks you've worn for survival, to tear down the false identities you've built just to feel loved. This is soul work, not storytelling. This is spiritual fire, not romantic fairy tale. Carl Jung believed that the soul doesn't care about your comfort. It cares about your growth. And sometimes, growth comes dressed as heartbreak. You didn't lose a love. You lost a version of yourself. The version that begged to be chosen. The version that thought love had to look a certain way to be real. The version that was still living in fear, in fantasy, in smallness. When they left, yes, it hurt. It cracked something open inside you. But what if that crack was the doorway? The doorway to a deeper truth, to a quieter strength, to a version of yourself that doesn't just chase love, but embodies it. The ones that burn us the deepest, often free us the most. And you're not broken because it ended. You're braver because it did. You looked love in the face, raw, real, wild, and you let it change you. That is not weakness, that is spiritual strength. So stop saying you lost love. You didn't lose, you transcended. You graduated from illusions. You leveled up from needing love to becoming love. And trust this, the universe never removes something that's meant to be part of your destiny, only something that was part of your awakening. So honor the burn, let the ashes fall, because who you are now is someone reborn in truth, and that is a love story the ego could never understand. Chapter 6. They woke you up. Now what? You can't stop thinking about them, can you? Even after all this time. Even when you know they're not coming back. Even when life has forced you to move forward. Their memory still clings to your soul like perfume in the dark. Faint, haunting, permanent. And you've asked yourself 100 times, why? Why can't I just let this go? Why does their absence feel louder than their presence ever did? But here's the truth. Most people will never dare to say out loud, you can't forget them, because they didn't just enter your life. They entered your becoming. They didn't just break your heart. They awakened your soul. They cracked open a portal to the version of you that was waiting beneath years of self-betrayal, people-pleasing, and living life on autopilot. They touched the unfinished symphony inside you, the raw, unpolished, hidden self that was screaming to rise, but was buried under wounds you pretended didn't exist. They pulled you toward a future you were too afraid to approach alone, a future that required strength, self-honesty, courage to walk alone, and the wisdom to stop begging others to walk with you. Yes, they woke you up. But now what? Now? The real journey begins. Because here's the raw truth. They were never meant to walk with you. They were never your destination. They were the earthquake that split your path wide open, so you could finally see the road you were always meant to walk. They didn't come to complete you. They came to collapse everything that was never really you. So instead of chasing closure from them, instead of sitting in the echo of why did they leave me, instead of looking for meaning in their silence, shift the question. Ask yourself the only question that truly matters now. What did they awaken in me? Because that question changes everything. That question isn't about the past. It's about your rebirth. Maybe they awakened the version of you that no longer wants to settle for half love. Maybe they reminded you of your soul's craving for purpose, passion, presence. Maybe they showed you your capacity to feel, to break, to bleed, and still rise like a warrior out of the fire. When someone wakes you up, your soul doesn't give you the option to go back to sleep. You've seen too much now. You've felt too much now. You can't unknow your depth. You can't unsee your truth. And you sure as hell can't unlive the fire they lit inside of you. So, what now? Now, you become the version of yourself that you saw reflected in their eyes. Now as you walk the path that your soul has always known was yours, even when your mind was too afraid to admit